right. I am here with Davit Baghdasaryan, co-founder of Krisp AI. How are you doing today?
Hey, Eric, doing great. Thanks. Excited for this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Great to have you here. I would love to learn a little bit about your founder's journey, but tell me, what's your kind of origin story? What made you get the bug of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. My background is engineering. I've spent like 15 years, over 15 years in doing software engineering, security engineering. And if you ask me like a year before co-founding Crisp, whether I imagine myself like founding a company, I would probably say like no way.
Hmm.
I imagine like running engineering groups or like other things like building systems and so on, but probably not founding companies. But then like this happened so organically, and I think like I guess like couple weeks in, and I just thought that this is what I should be doing.
Hmm.
I enjoy this so much. This comes so naturally to me that like right now I just don't imagine doing anything else. It's very interesting actually to find out about it, because I guess there are so many hidden potential founders out there
Yeah.
that are waiting for their wake up call.
Yeah, that's an interesting twist right off the bat. I love talking with different founders about building and scaling their company, but there are so many people out there who want to become an entrepreneur, and maybe they have some imposter syndrome, or there's some fear of the unknown. So, what was it that made it feel so natural for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so look, like at the core, like so we are two co-founders, right? Like myself and Artio, and we are both very very technical people. Like so, and Chris has started as a very very like deep tech company. So just if the idea that we are building like a highly difficult technical system, and then like a company around it, was super super exciting for me. So it just like I was all into it. There are so many things I just didn't know about startups, but like I think like even today, like just reading, learning every day comes very naturally for us, right? So I think like that's part of the like having the growth mindset must be
Mhm.
there, right? I think like it's really important part of any founder. But once you have these like really important ingredients, uh, I think like you're just destined to do uh, entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Obviously it's more like deep, way deeper than that. But I think like just the ingredients were there, and they were just waiting for a kickstart.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I experienced that myself. I spent about a decade in big tech. I worked in big tech companies, and I always felt like I was fighting off stagnation, right? I mean, it's all about whether it's even if it's just keeping your technical skills relevant because you're getting pigeonholed into some tech stack that is increasingly becoming obsolete as time goes on. But even just the scope of challenges, right? That you're a smaller and smaller piece of a bigger machine always really made me uncomfortable. So even when I was working in big tech, I had my coaching and consulting business on the side, and that's where I got all of my fulfillment from. And I kind of always had this joke that every year in a startup is a career in the enterprise, and that's true, right? So if you want to learn fast and you want to grow quickly, if you have that growth mindset, to be honest, it's stifling to be in a large enterprise.
Yeah, gosh, like absolutely. Like every year I look myself and then
Mhm.
compare it to the year before, and there is like just the difference of these two persons is so
Yeah.
much, right? I would just look back and say like, really, I was like thinking like that, or I was making such decisions, and it's incredible. Like, yeah, that's very fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the like biggest motivations for founders, the
So
growth.
how did you, what, were there any fears that you had going into it?
You know what? When I started Crisp, actually, I had to sort of make a decision to leave Twilio. I was working at Twilio,
Mhm.
and Twilio was on a rise, so I had a lot of stock there, and some of that stock options were not vested. So I was actually leaving a lot of money on the table to start, which makes such decisions more difficult. But I was so convinced that like it's just the right thing to do, that even like by losing, couple $1,000,000 didn't stop me from making this decision. So I would say, I mean, there are always fears. It's always a risk. We set to like solve a problem that nobody solved before. AI powered noise cancellation, and the technology wasn't there. So, but we had this confidence that something will come out of this, right? If you have a smart team and you work on something like closely for a certain period of time, something nice always happens out of it. It may be a small thing, and over time, our appetite became bigger and bigger, of course. But but originally, we thought like it will end up in some sort of exit, so it will be a good decision. That was a good thought to have at least.
So getting back to kind of, I want to push a bunch of founders or potential founders over the ledge here. So the idea of stock options or of RSUs is a big trick that large companies play. And, this idea that you've got these stocks, there's a number in your portfolio, but it hasn't vested yet. You don't actually own those stocks. They're not yours. They have not been granted. Until they vest, they don't exist. And there's a lot of people in your shoes. And I mean, they design it this way. And that's why they grant usually every 6 months or every year, because there's always that money they're just holding that carrot out in front of you. But you really need to see, hey, every stock that hasn't vested yet actually doesn't exist. And I have to buy into it with a year of my life, right? Every year that I stay at this company, I get another tranche of stocks, but it's not.
Usually, Eric, it's like monthly, right? After like the first year, it's monthly. And I think it's a very, very fair arrangement. Actually, it's like one of the most fair arrangements that makes startups possible, right? So, you can argue about it. We can argue about this for a long time, but actually it works. That's why there are so many startups. There's so much motivation and incentive from both sides, right? So I think that's a good thing. It works and produces a lot of value.
Well, it works for the companies for sure, because they hang on to that talent, right?
I mean, it works both sides, in my opinion. Like it's a great opportunity for employees also to get rich, to become financially independent. Like that's what happened with me at Twilio. So the part that was vested for me turned out to be a great fortune for me, so that I can take the step of founding company, right? So I had this.
Oh, absolutely.
Basically,
I'm not arguing that it's not a great thing. I'm saying that for people who want to start a company, but they're hanging on to their big tech job because they've got all of this unvested stock, that's not real. Right. Well, you've already vested and sold. That's real money. Right. But that stuff that's hanging out there, it's not real until you buy the time. So if you have that opportunity to go after a startup idea, don't
exactly. And I have a lot of friends that actually, I mean, they are in this comfort zone where like they are vesting their stock every month. And I'm actually very confident if they started the company, if they chose the entrepreneurship path, they would live a way happier life and more interesting life and become more wealthy. But it's really hard to get out of the comfort life.
It is.
And so I think it's a good carrot. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It works both ways. And some people they like comfort, so they are not going to leave anyway. But anyway, yeah.
So tell me about the problem that you saw in the market that, like you said, was so natural and so compelling for you that you left Twilio.
Yeah. So look, the idea we had was to build noise cancellation technology that was using machine learning. That was like nobody in the industry was using that approach. And the reason we wanted to build this, it was personal for me. I was working at Twilio. I was every summer I was traveling to Armenia, where I'm originally from. And because of the time zone difference, I would join my team calls in the morning in Pacific time, and it was evening in Armenia. And if you're in the summer in Armenia, it's evening time. You don't want to be home. You want to be outside. So, and if you're outside, there is noise. So I wanted a button which I click, and the noise would, be eliminated entirely. So I got some privacy. That was basically my personal problem, and we set to solve this problem, and so we chose this machine learning approach, which is referred to AI now. We were not calling it AI by that time, and nobody was doing this. So we assembled a team of scientists who were deeply who were like PhDs from math and physics, and we set out to solve this problem. That it was amazingly interesting time. Like we were reading scientific papers, trying to make sense of math and AI and digital signal processing. So and in a year we were able to. We had a technology that we thought was working great. Like in the hindsight, it was pretty shitty at that time. But the interesting thing is that we didn't have audio experts in the team. So we thought the technology was pretty great. Anyway, so like 2 years in, it took us 2 years to actually have a production ready technology. And that was, a time of ups and downs, a lot of stress, but we were able to ship that technology, and we pioneered basically this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so as somebody who obviously has a podcast, but who lives my entire life basically speaking into a microphone, audio quality is something that I'm very tuned to. In fact, so, in this podcast, we will often have guests come on that have poor sound quality, and, they're using whatever, just like old ear pods, or they're in some kind of a noisy room with some fans blowing. And sometimes it's so bad that my producer has to make me sound worse because it's so jarring, the difference between their, they can't make their voice sound that much better, that they have to make me sound worse so that it isn't such a strange experience. So everything is just kind of dumbed down. So I'm very, very tuned to that. In fact, also, I record a lot of content and have meetings and stuff, and I like to be outside. I'm always hiking, and I like to go to the beach and things like that. And I've tried my best to find microphones that do built-in noise canceling, but there's nothing really out there. So anyway, I'm certainly planning on using this. This tool.
No, look, we have pioneered software-based noise cancellation, right? So like technology that doesn't depend on hardware, and this technology exists in other places today as well. I mean, I'm pretty confident ours is the best because we know the market really, really well. But yeah, AI is transforming voice quality as well, and that's super, super exciting.
So what are some of the kind of early challenges or growing pains that you faced when building this company?
Oh my God, yeah, tons of them.
Yeah.
Look, when we just started, our idea was that we will be a technology licensing company. So we will build this technology, and then we'll go to Twilio, back to Twilio, and then Zooms of the world, right? And we'll provide these APIs or SDKs to them. But very quickly we identified that it's really hard to work with larger companies when you're a tiny startup. They, especially if it's a problem that, voice is always in a critical path, especially real-time voice. Nobody wants to touch that infrastructure. So and noise cancellation wasn't a high pain problem for them. So the cycle of feedback was very slow. In the same time, when we were showing our demos to people, they would just go nuts. They would be like, "Oh my God, I want to use this because of all the reasons you just mentioned," right? Because it's clearly it's a pain for them. So that's we made a pivot. We said, okay, you know what? We will build an app that sits on top of your microphone. It's like a virtual microphone, and in real time it transforms your voice and makes it more clear and so on. And that was like a marketing idea for us. Like we said, this way we Krisp will become popular, and then all the companies will come to us for the technology. And that's what exactly happened. Like the largest companies out there came to us and say like, hey, can we license, can we acquire your company and so on. But at that point we already got so much excitement from our users of our app that we said, or actually, you know what, there is a bigger upside in building an app rather than being like licensing our technology. Yeah, that was a big pivot for us. And you can imagine, like, if you have a technology and you don't have the product idea yet, that from one perspective, that's great. You can raise money, you can make people excited, but that's gonna follow you, right? Like, because if you want to build a big company, you need to have a product idea, you need to have a platform idea. So this was like, from one perspective, it was great that we had a deep tech. It's hard to copy that. But from other perspective, we had to find like a product platform idea. And this was a big pain for us. Like, it sort of followed us for years. Yeah. I mean, I think we are like over that problem. But anyway, like for the first 2-3 years, this was a big problem for us.
That's interesting. I have a lot of coaching clients that are actually dealing with this right now, that they've got a really great technology, or even a platform, that doesn't have a product or a business model around it. So what do you think are kind of what were maybe the big steps or the big challenges that you had to overcome to take a deep technology and actually turn it into a viable business model? Let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah. Look, one problem always is fundraising, right? So when you go to VCs, they want to see and they see this pattern all the time. Like, they want to see a big problem. Like, they want to see a platform sort of company, or at least a product company. So in the very beginning, when we were pitching like technology licensing sort of business model, we got a pushback, and that's what made us pivot. We said, okay, you know what, this app business is so much more interesting. There's so much traction we are seeing, the feedback is great and so on. So like, we were able to fundraise and convince VCs that this is going to be like, the noise cancellation is such a big problem by itself that we can start with this, and then we can add other voice productivity features, right? And so like, our early pitch out of our Skydeck Accelerator that we went through had this idea that we will start with noise cancellation, we will add transcription, like meeting notes, and then accent localization. So in real time, we will fix, or convert accents, right? Or translate accents. What? Yeah. Really? And then we will do real time translation. And that's what, like, 6 years in, we have that product today, right? Like, it does all of these except language translation. So like 6 years ago, we pitched this, like, we went through this pivot basically. And now we have that product with all the things that I mentioned to you, right? But yeah, look, it's just building the noise cancellation part turned out to be so difficult technologically that we just spent like 3 years perfecting this technology, solving for this use case, and so on. I mean, that's the path of deep tech company, right? Yeah. And along the way, yeah, a lot of challenges, obviously, from fundraising to finding like the right segment that for which like that background noise is the biggest pain. Anyway, so I can go into like very different.
Well, let's focus on that one here, because that, I think, is the real core issue with founders who build a really great sort of broad, or a really great technology with a broad set of applications, is focus. and being able to pick one customer or one market or one use case to build a business around, because they just, oh, well, it could be everything for everybody. And so we're just going to create this because it's such a versatile technology or platform. So how did you go about the process of actually choosing a segment?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. A week ago, I wrote a piece. I have a voice AI newsletter. I just started like several weeks ago. And a week ago, I wrote a piece called 24 use cases of noise cancellation. So there are really many use cases for this, right? Like it's noise cancellation. Anything you do with audio has a noise problem in it. And it's a fallacy. Like a lot of early founders or new founders, getting to this fallacy that, oh yeah, I have this tech, I can apply everywhere. But that's not how the world works. You really, because at the point that you're entering a market that is lucrative enough, there are going to be other players around, right? So you're going to have competition, and for every use case there is going to be a competition. So you need to like really focus on one hopefully vertical use case, or if it's horizontal, but at least one, segment it, right? So that you have a chance to prevail in that market. So like over time, like obviously we went through all these 24 use cases. There were customers asking for us, to enter this, or solve these use cases for them. But we at least were able to say, what, we're going to be in real time conversations, right? Real timeness is super, super important for us. We have technologies that are perhaps the best in the world for recordings. Like we have a technology today that can remove background noise from recordings, but we are not deploying that because it's not in real time use case. So you need to be able to say no to these things and focus on your use case. Even like real time voice is so horizontal, right? Like meetings, calls, and other things. Even that is not enough, I think, as a segment. But at least it removes all these, like makes 24 to like 2 or 3 use cases, right? And it gives the necessary focus to you.